And we can elevate our politics if it's based on facts and logical, concrete analysis of our situation. If you say that the vice president is dead and she's not dead, and she reappears 3 days later, 1 week later, 2 months later, what have you achieved? So this misguided, reckless, and absolutely pedestrian attitude to politics ought to be condemned in the strongest possible terms. And I find it refreshing that this morning we are reading a statement that she has made, and which apparently was read on her behalf by one of her advisors, the Honorable Ofosu Ampafu. Very refreshing. From what we are hearing, it does appear that her recovery rate is very fast. Indeed, some even say that she has recovered and is only taking a rest, and that in the not too distant future, she will be with us. But the substance of the issues in the statement which was read on her behalf are most important. And this morning, I'd like to read a story which was carried by the Insight newspaper on its page 5 this morning, so that we can put things in context. And the story says, hospital admissions with kidney diseases have tripled in the last 10 years at the Komfo Anochi Hospital. Outpatient cases with kidney-related diseases have also quadrupled, with a number of these patients hailing from mining communities. Officials at the head facility have attributed the growing cause to the use of mercury in mining activities happening in some of Ghana's farmlands and forest covers. A nephrologist at the Komfo Anochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Elios Tano, revealed that the use of the chemical in extracting gold has a direct effect on kidney, heart, and brain. He indicated that people domiciled in illegal mining areas are exposed to toxic metal through inhalation and consumption of water sources in the communities. The number of people who are presenting with kidney disease is increasing. Data we collected from the Komfo Anochi Teaching Hospital, just looking at the past 10 years, has revealed that the numbers are increasing. When we look at our admissions 10 years ago, we are admitting 3 times. And this is in quote. The people we used to see as outpatients are also 4 times more than 10 years ago. Sadly, when these cases are presented to us, they are usually at their end stage. This is what the people of Ghana are suffering under. Clearly, the fact that these resources are embedded in our soils has become a curse. Complete curse. We are dying because we have gold. We are dying because we have lithium. We are dying because we have oil and gas and so on. Now, what the Vice President is saying, Professor Jadlan Wapukwajuna is saying, is that this should not be the case. And that the fact that we have these resources should lead to prosperity. Access to education needs to improve. Access to healthcare needs to improve. What she's saying is that our access to decent housing needs to be improved on the basis of the resources we have buried in our soils and so on. And she makes a comparison of Obuasi and Johannesburg. Now look at the difference between Obuasi and Johannesburg. And for all we know, Obuasi actually has produced more gold than Johannesburg. And yet, Johannesburg is a thriving city. Obuasi has streets still filled with potholes. creators, and so on. Many people in Obuasi are extremely poor, and so on. So who is benefiting from the extraction of these resources from our soils? And this is an important question that we need to address ourselves to. Thankfully, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman is not a pedestrian. Indeed, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman is the Vice President of the Republic. And if these are her concerns, one would expect that they be translated into action, into policy, and so on, which would change the situation. You understand? She's a very important person, next to the President. And we expect that her concerns will reflect in policy. That is, people like me can make statements, and if nothing happens, fine. But people like her, when they make statements like this, they ought to be translated into policy and eventually action. One of the menaces we are fighting right now is galamsey. You understand? And we haven't won the battle yet, and I wasn't expecting us to win the battle in only 3 months of a new administration. But we need to have concerted effort at winning this battle against galamsey. And one of the most important measures which have been taken so far is the decision to transfer security personnel from the mining centers, areas where galamsey is prevalent, and to bring in new faces and so on. It may look cosmetic, but it is not. Now, all of these illegal mining activities were taking place when these security personnel were at post. What did they do to curb it? You see, an excavator is not like your Samsung mobile phone. You can't put an excavator in your back pocket and walk away unnoticed. They're huge machines, carried on payloaders, driven on the streets and so on. So those security heads cannot be telling us that they were unaware of the movement of heavy equipment into our forests, which has caused the degradation that all of us are deeply worried about. If they didn't do anything, then they were complicit, or they simply turned the other eye, the other way, for these things to happen. And I'm happy that this measure has been taken. I'm also very highly impressed by the enthusiasm of the new Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. He appears to have a lot of enthusiasm. Now, that enthusiasm ought to be the starting point. Enthusiasm is only a starting point, and I'm hoping that we will put the fight against galamsey, on the scale of a national war against something which is killing our people, which is poisoning our waters, which is leading to deformities, in newly born babies, which is affecting our ability to earn foreign exchange, especially through the export of cocoa and so on. So far, I think that the minister has taken the right steps, and he must be encouraged to continue, this battle and so on. Now, there's also a certain historical angle to the story that we are discussing. And it is simply the motivation for a struggle for national liberation. And I recall that in 1945, all of those leaders who were struggling for African independence, and against racist oppression of the African people, met in Manchester, 1945, in the 5th Pan-African Congress, to which Nkrumah was the secretary. And one of the decisions they took was simply to have a 3 or 4 stage, approach to African redemption and African liberation. And for them, the first step was independence. That we needed to be independent. We needed to kick the colonialists out. The second step for them was that it was important for the African people to own their resources and exploit these resources for their own benefit. And the third stage, they decided was the unification of the African continent under scientific socialism. Scientific socialism. All of them, all of these leaders, from the diaspora, from the continent, including Nkrumah, including Du Bois, including Padmore, including Nyerere, including Azikwe, and all of them, came to the conclusion that these were the only steps which could free the African from poverty, from domination, and from oppression. Now, we gained our independence in 1957. And what has happened is that systematically over the years, we have handed control of these resources to foreign multinational corporations, not just foreign, but multinational corporations originating from the colonial metropolis. What are we doing? What are we doing? You know, so I think that the call by the Vice President needs to be taken very, very seriously and acted upon by her own government. And like Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, I want to wish the Vice President well and hope that in the not too distant future she'll be back with us and leading, spearheading the effort to make sure that we own our resources and exploit these resources for our own benefit.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. This one says, good morning to you, like KOD and our panelists and cherished viewers across the world. I'm always happy to see Comrade Pratt and Honorable Inusa Fuseni on your show. They understand the history of Ghana and even beyond Ghana. They also understand the issues or problems that Ghana faces, and when they are asked to speak about them, they deliver to the admiration and satisfaction of the people. KOD, kindly tell my mentor, Honorable Inusa Fuseni, that in his contact to give him an important message. You see from Damango, sent in this one. Good morning to you, Kwame, from Kucho, Manshia Zongo. Kwame, the VIP has shown that she's a mother, a true mother, will lie. For politicians who behave this way, Ghana will not suffer. This one also says, good morning to you, KOD. I'm happy you are back on set to keep the good work you've been doing for Mother Ghana. Please tell Mr. Pratt and Lawyer Inusa Fuseni to be regular on Pan-African TV. Yesterday I was somewhere, a police officer said, when are you coming back? I said, I've started. I said, oh, I stopped the way you left. I stopped watching. I said, oh, I'm back. I'll be back. Good morning to you. Watching you live at Kunsu. Solomon Jagri. Jagri is my name. I'm not happy this morning. Why delay the appointment of MMDCs? Hey, okay, all right.
Oh, the last batch of the nominees have been released.
Ah, okay. Okay, all right. I guess it's time to look at the other issues. Today it appears we may finish the show very early.
No, so let me. So I like the angle, the historical angle that Comrade Kwesi Pratt has taken the fight for African liberation, and to draw the attention of our teeming youth to what our forefathers and the African liberators thought could spearhead our or give impetus to our growth and development as a continent. Long before the emergence of Nkrumah, Nyerere, and others, Africans had come to believe that the relationship, our relationship with the Europeans, was a forced relationship. Our ancestors were, when there were no machines to do work, our ancestors were identified as machines who could do the work that donkeys were doing then. I mean, we were virtually seen as donkeys, taken across the oceans, packed like sardine. And again, that is an extractive relationship. That what they were interested in, what the imperial colonialists were interested in was our labor. So they were packing us across the Atlantic to extract our labor. And where, I mean, then there are records showing clearly that where an African was bought through the slave trade, and then the master, that is the white imperialist, felt that that African was not delivering to his expectation, he shot him. He shot him because he didn't want him to be eating his food and not working for him. So like an animal. So again, that's a extractive relationship. So African, what Kosipra has described as scientific socialism has been described in other literature as African socialism. Within the Ghanaian context, in fact, it assumed the name of Nkrumahism. So that clearly should tell you that we were not looking to the East or the West for our salvation, even though our leaders then were guided by what was happening in the East or the West. There was an appreciation of the fact that we needed to develop homegrown solutions to our problems. And owning the mineral resources of Africa was the key. That's why I said in 2019 or thereabouts, or 1999 actually, the Africans, when they met in Sirte, Libya, they came up with the African mining vision. So why do we have to allow for our minerals? And they say more than 60% of Africa is not yet exploited for any mineral, and that we still hold the largest amount of mineral on earth. But it's not a paradox of reasoning that even though the continent is rich, the people are amongst the poorest. Why? Is it that we are incapable? And then when you talk about distance, then they bring racist ideology, and we are not capable of managing our own resources. How? When civilization, like William Soyinka said, that when he was reading the books about, savages in Africa, he started rereading the books. And then he then appreciated that, oh, the savages that were described in the books that he was reading were actually he and his people. So then he took it upon himself to do a reinterpretation of what they were writing. So then he took it upon himself to do a reinterpretation of what they were writing. You understand? So he re-educated himself. So inbuilt in the books that we are reading are things that will hold us back. I've read somewhere a philosopher say that, an economist say that the whole idea of international trade is keeping us underdeveloped. Because then they come and say that, oh, we should specialize in areas that we can. So which areas that, oh, so Ghana, we should specialize in the production of cocoa and in those states, because those cocoa, like Dr. Naza once told us so many years ago, around 1982, when the revolution started. So, have you ever thought that if the white man was a consumer of rice, Ghana would have been the leading producer of rice on the African continent, because they would have put in systems to ensure that we produce rice for them. But because they were interested in eating chocolate, so yes, if they are, the whole economy,
yeah,
our whole economy is structured in such a way as to meet the demands, of the European or the Western metropolis. That's our structure of our economy. So even though we produce yam in abundance, it gets nowhere. They don't eat yam. It gets nowhere. Okay? And then the saddest part is that within the African continent, we eat yam. But the trade relationship have not developed. There are too many. There are too many. When we were growing up, and Comrade will tell you, then they said, anytime they said, and in the primary school we used to write the food I like most. It was a famous, popular topic for teachers to write, composition. And you describe how it is prepared. At that time that we were growing up, nobody ever said rice was the most popular food. Either it was fufu, either it was baku, either it was tizet, yam. But today, go to the school and ask them, they'll say what? Jollof. Again, let me tell you what has happened. My mother, I grew up knowing my mother as somebody who was processing rice. And the process of parboiling, drying, and all those things. And that was the local rice. Now we call it local rice, but that was the rice. And then people did not like the polished rice. That's how beri-beri, when we were in secondary school, beri-beri, say, we are eating too much polished rice. That's why we have beri-beri. Beri-beri was when you developed rashes. Okay? Then gradually, they turned our thinking. So our rice industry did what? Collapsed at a point in time. Because no one was interested in the local rice. So farmers were no longer producing. And then we started importing rice, creating employment for Singapore, creating employment for Malaysia, creating employment for India. And that's what they do to us. So until we discover that we have to own our own development trajectory, we have to, in the words of Dalati, we have to grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Domestication. We have to imbibe it. We have to prevent, like Nigeria said, we don't want importation of rice. And 2 years ago, they were almost self-sufficient in the rice production.
Yes,
they did it. The same thing. For 100 years, Obuasi has been producing gold. 100 years. Tell me, within the 100 years, which refinery was established in Ghana to process the gold? And gold doesn't come alone. When I went to Switzerland as a minister for lands and natural resources, the silver that you get in processing gold, you will be shocked. But what do they account for? When they take the gold out for processing, what do they account for to us? Do they account for the other minerals that are found together with the gold? So what happens to that? So yes, so there are 3 things that we must do, and I simply think that the Vice President is speaking the language that everybody wants to hear, that our resources must benefit us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, sir. I'm Paul from Bolga. Please, I'm a graduate nurse. NSS has given us a link for us to log in and access our PIN code for our service posting. But some of us are facing difficulties in accessing the portal. We lodged a complaint and they said they will work on it since Tuesday. But I had an information this morning that we should pay 50 cedis. So they will work on it. Meanwhile, we've paid 41 cedis already to access the portal. Help us talk to the CEO of National Service. Some workers don't want to open the portal for us to access, but rather want us to pay money before they open it for us. Okay, all right. I'm sure he's heard. Thank you. This one also says, it's a shame that we are poor, yet sitting on vast natural resources. Corruption and greed by the political elite is to blame. You see from Accra sent in this one. This one also says, Abbas Omogobo in official MPP and Akufo-Addo was so wicked to Ghanaians, and the repercussions are exactly what MPP members and their assigns are experiencing today. The former Chief Justice loved the party more than the position she was occupying. Okay, that's your opinion. Good morning to you and your intellectual brilliant comrades. Let me say what John Donne said in his poem, "Death be not proud." The phrase in the poem, much more must flow. Death. So must... okay, all right. Okay. Uncle Kwesi Pratt gave me money in 2016 when I nearly quit my university at KNUST at the expense of all my family members. Uncle Pratt, let me have your contact. Greetings to my walking encyclopedia. Okay, Joel Blay from Axim sent in this one. Okay. Okay, it appears everybody was, people are sending messages in respect of the Chief Justice matter, so maybe we must go there. Edwin Tamaklo, just like many other NDC communicators, has been talking, and he has indicated that President John Dramani Mahama has demonstrated consistency and fidelity to the 1992 Constitution. How so, Honorable? How so?
Oh, okay. Yesterday I listened to Mr. Comrade Kwesi Pratt on another platform, and I was intrigued. Right. I think that they should give him an honorary law degree.
Yeah, it reminds me of an interview, I think, on Radio Gold, I believe, on Elijah on Radio Gold those days. And I think it was in respect of a matter. Then they had called, I believe, either Ayariga, Mahama Ayariga or somebody, you know. It was a legal matter. So after Mr. Pratt spoke, the man said, but you call me the analysis. What do you want to say again?
I listened to it.
How do you remember that?
And I said, you see, the hypocrisy and the double-faced approach to issues of national importance is what is getting us all agitated and sad. The office of the Chief Justice is a creature of the Constitution. The removal of a Chief Justice is not specifically provided as a head note. Article 146 deals with the removal of justices of the Superior Court of Judicature and regional chairmen. So, invariably, because the Chief Justice is a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, she is singled out in Article 1466 for two reasons. One, the removal of a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, if the petition, and the Constitution sets out the procedure, if individual citizens of this country feel that a certain justice of the Superior Court of Judicature has misconducted himself or herself in terms of Article 1461, or has an infirmity of body and mind that has rendered such a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature incapable of performing the functions of office, that petition must be sent to the President. And the President doesn't determine what happens to that petition. The President has to wire that petition to the Chief Justice. As why? Why so? Because the Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary. Okay? So no one should be performing the functions which should be performed by the head of the judiciary in respect of justices of the Superior Court of Judicature. And when we say justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, it's not limited to only those who are in the course dispensing justice. The Constitution has also created constitutional bodies, independent constitutional bodies, and has given them terms and conditions equivalent to the justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, particularly a Court of Appeal. So the Electoral Commissioner has the same terms and conditions as a justice of the Court of Appeal. The NCCE boss has the same terms and conditions as a justice of the Superior Court of Appeal. The same terms and conditions. So, in 2015 or thereabouts, there was an occupant of an independent constitution office of an office created by an independent constitutional body. The boss of the NCCE, and not on prayer, felt that that person had misconducted herself while in office and sent a petition for her removal. I'm talking about Lamptey, Mrs. Lamptey. That petition triggered Article 146 of the Constitution. And Laura Lamptey was found culpable and she was removed from office. You recall?
Yep.
The petition to remove her was sent by another prayer. Now, in 2000 and nobody said anything. I mean, a committee was established and the committee went into the matter, and then the committee found that the grounds on which the petition had relied for the removal of the boss of the NCC had been proven, and she was removed. She was removed. Nobody chastised Anodon Pre for removing an occupant of a constitutional body. Nobody. And up to now, in the conversation we are having, no one has ever chastised Anodon Pre because Anodon Pre was seen as a responsible and dutiful citizen of the country. Not so?
Yeah.
In 2018, there was a petition against the former EC boss, Electoral Commission boss, Charlotte Osei. That petition triggered Article 146. In fact, on this platform, we discussed the headless petition. We asked who were the petitioners. We didn't know. And finally, we heard what happened. Finally, the petitions became two. The Chief Justice, so because Charlotte Osei had the terms and conditions of a Justice of the Court of Appeal, the petition was sent to the Chief Justice to determine whether they raised a prima facie case. The Chief Justice determined that they raised a prima facie case. Charlotte Osei was taken through the process and was found to be culpable and removed from office. The same Article 146, not any article, Article 146. But you see, Article 146(6) deals with the Chief Justice. Because you can't expect that when the petition is for the removal of a Chief Justice, you will send the petition to the Chief Justice to determine whether there's a prima facie case. She will be a judge in her own cause. So you need another institutional mechanism independent of the Chief Justice to determine whether, and the Constitution says, well, if the petition has to do with the removal of Chief Justice, the President in consultation, that is the only time under Article 146 that the President in consultation with the Council of State determines whether there's a prima facie. So if a Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, even if a Supreme Court judge is to be removed on a petition, the President doesn't determine whether a prima facie case has happened. It's the Chief Justice. It is only when it is the Chief Justice herself that the framers of the Constitution said, look, mindful of the age-long principles of the rules of natural justice, and also keenly aware that we need to protect the dignity and sanctity of that office, we don't want that office to be tainted by partisan political considerations. So we are not going to say that the President must send the petition to Parliament for Parliament to determine whether there's a prima facie case. We are not going to say that the President must send the petition to the Ghana Bar Association for the Ghana Bar Association to determine whether there's a prima facie case. We are going to ask the Council of State, which is an independent body of experts, okay, non-partisan establishment or institution, to determine, together with the president, whether a prima facie case has been made. In fact, when you read Ajechum, you will be left in no doubt that the Council of State, that Aba advises that the Council of State should play a prominent role. And so you would have heard that when the matter went to them and they subjected it to debate, they voted overwhelmingly to state that a prima facie case has been determined. And the president did not overrule that thing. The president is law-abiding. The president wants the institutions of state and the laws of the country. I mean, he swore on the Bible to uphold the laws of the country. And he's not going to promote impunity. And so, when the Council of State voted to say that a prima facie case has been determined, they advised the president to set up a committee. Now, when you read the Constitution carefully, the Council of State, having advised the president to set up a committee, also advised the president to do what? To suspend the Chief Justice. That's what people don't understand. And again, then let me deviate small, and even though my brother Koseprat displayed serious legal prowess in discussing this matter, the fundamental underlying principles in Article 146 is what we call checks and balances. There are serious rules that check the exercise of power by the president. The first check on the exercise of power, and all these checks embedded in Article 146 is to protect the office of the Chief Justice in respect of petitions brought to the president by the Chief Justice. I mean, seeking the removal of the Chief Justice. All the checks. The first check on the exercise of the executive power of the president under Article 58 in Article 146 is that the president has to determine whether there is a prima facie case in consultation with the Council of State. And you are a lawyer, you know what that means. That is an institutional limitation on the exercise of that power of the president to determine whether there is a prima facie case. It means that the president acting alone cannot do it. It will be unconstitutional. And why do you think it is so? So that an overzealous president will not take the law into his own hands and do as he pleases. The second check on the exercise of the power of the president is a substantial limitation on the exercise of his power. And that is seen in Article 146, 8 or 9, where a decision is made by the Council of State, by the committee established under the Constitution. The president has to give effect to that decision. Has to act in accordance with that decision. So if the committee so established comes to the conclusion that there is no case against the Chief Justice, the president must act in accordance. Again, the president cannot ignore. Why is that so? There's a check on the power, the exercise of the power of the president. The last one is to suspend a Chief Justice. There's a procedural limitation on the power of the president. He must act in accordance with the advice given by the Council of State. So there are protective mechanisms all over in Article 146 that the MPP should have been minded. And I say MPP because they're so jumpy. They're so jumpy. This is the preliminary stages of the matter. Preliminary. Now that the Chief Justice has been suspended, and now that a committee has been set, this is the time that she has to in the words of the lawyer, get all her arsenals together to go before the committee to do what? To present a case and defend her case against the petition. This is the time. Assemble all the arsenals at her disposal. And to do that, again, you will see where the president exercised followed or accepted the advice of the Council of State. You need to afford her all opportunity to defend herself. So you don't encumber her with office duties to make it impossible for her to concentrate on defending herself. You don't encumber. If you say that stay in office, you are encumbering her. She will have divided attention to defend herself. And so for me, what the president has done is in accordance with the law. It's intended and shows extreme good faith in this particular matter. It's unfortunate that we are having to deal with the Chief Justice. But then, I always ask myself, what do we want as Ghanaians? I think that all of us are looking for judicial accountability. Not so. And in the case of the Chief Justice, also administrative accountability, because she is the head of the judiciary. We all abhor impunity. And so, if persons in this country believe that the Chief Justice has acted in ways that suggest that she was oblivious or she acted in disregard to certain laid down principles that should regulate the exercise of her power and functions as Chief Justice, we should not say because she's Chief Justice, nothing should happen. That would be an exercise that would be clearly, staying off the performance of the duties of state. I mean, if the president was to say, "Oh, I've seen the petition, but because he's the Chief Justice, I think that we should let sleeping dogs lie," that would be a dereliction of duty. That would be a dereliction of duty. And I mean to do what rules. Yeah. So, and that could be tantamount to an impeachment of the president. But yes. So you see, we should be very clear. Yes, the removal of a Chief Justice anywhere in the world is a matter. But the Constitution also knew that a Chief Justice can act with impunity. And that's why they provided it. Even though they would not have provided it. Okay? Yep. And when you are always, my famous and favorite reference has always been to the 1969 Constitution. In the Consultative Assembly, the drafters of the Constitution were considering the best possible way to approach the removal of a Chief Justice. And they reviewed the American process. And in America, under the presidential system of government, a Chief Justice or a Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature is removed by impeachment in Congress. And anything that happens in Congress is a political activity. They also reviewed what happened in the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom too, a Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature can only be removed in Parliament. Again, a political process. So in 1969, the drafters of our Constitution said, no. We should not subject the removal of the Chief Justice to a political process. We should subject it to a non-political process. And so, a petition received by the President must be sent to the Council of State, and then a committee, in the 1969 Constitution, that committee is called a judicial tribunal. It's established with membership. Why is it that they said that a member of parliament cannot be a member of that committee? A member of the Council of State cannot be a member of that committee. A member of the Ghana Bar Association cannot be the member of that committee. Why do you think they said so? And then only justices of the Superior Court of Judicature can sit on that committee. Why is it that they said so? So we all pray that the Chief Justice will be afforded the maximum opportunity to defend herself. I still hold the view that it was for good reason that they said that everything concerning the removal process must be in camera. And I deplore attempts by political actors to make the process open and to leak part of the petitions to the public domain. In fact, the former Attorney General even went as far as condemning the decision of the Council of State. I said that was contemptuous of the Council of State because he went about analyzing, in his view, what the petitions, the issues the petitions had raised, and drawn a determination, a conclusion on the weight to be put on those grounds, and said that the Council of State's decision was poisonous. Former Deputy Attorney General, can you imagine? And I always say that probably what the MPP is doing is further sinking the Chief Justice, because they appear to have assumed the fight of the Chief Justice.
All right. Thank you. Mano James says, watching you live from Hamile. This one also says, if you have ever been to Tamale Hospital as a patient, a caregiver, or a visitor, you would know firsthand about the unprofessional behavior of the staff, particularly the nurses. It is upsetting to see how patients, especially those from rural areas or with low literacy, are treated poorly. The lack of empathy and respect shown by the doctors and nurses who refuse to even take phone calls from concerned family members is damaging the reputation of the hospital and its employees. It is not just the CEO, but all the heads of departments and senior doctors who called for the minister's apology should be held accountable and potentially fired. Thank you. Alasan is also watching us from Nyohini South. In a democratic society governed by the rule of law, no one, not even the Chief Justice, is above accountability. The idea that a prima facie case shouldn't even be considered simply because of a position, as some in the MPP are suggesting, is deeply flawed. Thank you, Mr. President, for your bold and principled leadership. Your decision to suspend the Chief Justice is in line with the advice of the Council of State, and it's a clear demonstration of your commitment to the Constitution and to the rule of law. At long last, the battle has ended. Ghana, our judiciary system, is free forever. Samuel Ansre says, NDC last held a presser. Sami Jemfi has been elevated and doesn't have time for presser. There must be a communication team to explain their positions on salient issues, and as a team, Sami can't and is now unable to function effectively as a communication couple. Johnny Kujo says, good morning to you, KOD. Are the MPP party telling us now the CJ belongs to their party? Okay, so these are the messages you've sent to me on Facebook. Let me read a few WhatsApp messages, and then we will go to Mr. Pratt on this subject matter. KOD, good morning. It's a shame. Great submission by Honorable Inusa Fuseni. The Constitution is clear, and those jumping on rooftops are just being mischievous. The President even gave her 10 days to respond. Yusuf from Accra. Good morning to you, comrades and patriots of Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. Nana's People's Party members should stop their big grammar and noise and point out to the good people of Ghana the constitutional provisions violated by the President on the CJ's suspension. They should go to court and challenge the process if they think they have a case. After all, the courts are packed by their judges. They should give us a break. They are acting as if the CJ is an MPP appointee. What is this? The EC lady is next to go. It is finished. Are you Justice from Navrungo sent in this one? Greetings to all your panels. Sir, you're welcome back. We're enjoying your show this morning. I'm Jackson from Accra. Please check on the NSS CEO for us. Many schools can't access the website for the national service posting. My son told me the deadline is this month, but they are asking for money before we access the website. Please help us talk to them. We don't want ghost names again. Let's prevent corruption, please. Justice Appiah, please facilitate this. Speak to the CEO and let us hear what he has to say on this matter. Good morning to you, KOD. TTH don't talk about the behavior of the staff. I have a personal experience when I visited them. Evans sent this one. Thank you, Evans, for your message. Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm says, good morning to you, my brother. In my humble opinion, that the Minister of Health and Suhini owe nobody any apology. The minister did what he did in the interest of the good people of Tamale. The minister did not just go up to Tamale. It was because of the suffering and bad treatment of the people of Tamale. Ghana Medical Association should give us a break. All right, the message is quite lengthy. I'm sorry I can't read it all. Good morning to you, KOD and our revered Honorable Inus Afuseni. I must admit that the way and manner Lawyer Afuseni always elicits on any topic of discussion is super. I believe most Ghanaians are very happy that finally the women organizer is suspended as confirmed by the research of Musa Dankwakeo. The president would have been doing more harm to Ghanaians if he hadn't acted upon these petitions. I still wonder a Chief Justice that would superintend over a matter that Ghana card can show one's nationality, but birth certificates can't. Suglo K. Ibrahim Loho, Nadoli Kalio. And good morning to you, Kwame. Please get Honorable Inus Afuseni to inform Loretta Lamte was Shraj boss, not NCC.
Okay.
Sebastian sent in this one. Good morning to you, Lawyer KOD. The MPP leadership and his disciples are just Western bootlickers. What has the CJ issues got to do with the Western world for the MPP party to be calling on them? I think the CJ is a Supreme Court judge that knows the laws and her rights quite better than most of them. Why are they struggling to fight for her when she has the arms to fight for herself? I smell a big rat in the MPP kitchen. Bibi from Musuku, Kwabenya. Mr. Pratt, let me come to you and then I will continue with the message, please.
Well, yesterday I read a very strange petition by a group of women who claimed that they are Christians. And their petition was to ask for stopping the process of investigating allegations against the Chief Justice and her possible impeachment. Now, the basis of their petition was that the Chief Justice is a woman and a Christian, and therefore she should not be removed from office. And I was wondering, the name which came to my mind immediately was the name of Charlotte Osei. And I think it's important to remind the petitioners that Madame Charlotte Osei was not a priest of the Akunedi Shrine. She too was a Christian. It's important also to remind them that she is a woman, and also that Loretta, the woman who was removed from Shrine, was not a Buddhist. And beyond that, she was also a woman. I mean, what is this crass? Anyway, what is this? That she should not be removed because she's a woman and a Christian. Where is that coming from? What law says that when Christians infract, the law, they should be left free and so on? I mean, very strange. But you see, it did not end there. One of the persons that I grew up respecting a lot, Mr. Sami Okujato, one of the most distinguished lawyers of our time. And when I was growing up, she was the leader of the NAL, the National Alliance of Liberals, which was in opposition to the Progress Party. And indeed, all of us came to respect him a lot because of his principled stand against the Buzia administration and so on. And yesterday, he made a statement which was most shocking. The statement he made was that having been suspended, there was no way the Chief Justice could come back to office. And I was wondering, which law says that? Which provision in the Constitution says that? Suspension is not the equivalent of dismissal. In fact, suspension means that if she is exonerated, she will come back to office. That's what suspension means. So I was just wondering how Mr. Sami Okujato, distinguished legal practitioner, one of the most senior lawyers in Ghana today, could come to such a conclusion. How did he come to this conclusion? Unbelievable. Now, there's something else that I want to emphasize, and it's simply this. This morning, all kinds of things are being published, and the claim is that they are the petitions on the basis of which the matter was referred to the Council of State. We cannot accept what we are seeing in the papers as petitions. There's no way of verifying that, and we cannot accept them now as the petitions. They may well be, but there's no basis for accepting them as a petition as at now. That's an important part of the equation. And it's also to do with what is claimed to be the Chief Justice's response to the petition. I think they should be dismissed as they are. So, now, for those who are crying all over the place and so on, I want them to show me one law, one constitutional provision which has been breached by the President. One, just one. Clearly, they talk about this will be a bad precedent and so on and so on. How is it legal? What in the Constitution says that anything which has been done so far is unconstitutional? What in the laws of Ghana says that anything which has been done so far is illegal? So, until they are able to do that, I think it's important for them to keep quiet and stop the noise making. You see, the Chief Justice has not helped herself at all in this matter. One, by leaking some information, about this process, she has done herself some damage. The framers of the Constitution decided that all of this should be held in secret, in camera, and so on, in order to protect the image and reputation of the Chief Justice, especially when at the end of the process she's found innocent, so she can come back, sit on the bench, and continue to act as Chief Justice without reputational damage. And I think she should have respected this position. The moment she leaked aspects of the correspondent and so on, she opened the door. Because the petition against Charlotte Osei, as we sit here, nobody knows who the petitioners were. It was never disclosed. It was done in confidence. You understand? The processes were done in camera and so on. But this Chief Justice, because of her own conduct, opened the doorway, and now things are flying around and so on. And no matter what happens, even if she's found innocent in the process, she's likely to suffer some reputational damage. You understand? It may well be, as it is claimed, that this allegation, I'm not saying that the allegation is true, that she traveled with a daughter, she traveled with a husband, and some per diem was paid and so on, may well be that it fitted into her conditions of service. But you see, people are asking questions. People are saying, why should anybody working in Ghana under Ghanaian conditions and for the Ghanaian people be given a vacation abroad? I mean, why would you employ anybody, Chief Justice, President, whatever, Minister, and in their conditions of service, you say that they're entitled to vacation abroad. They can travel abroad to enjoy their holidays, especially at the expense of the taxpayer and so on. So, you see, this leakage is causing some damage. And I'm very uncomfortable about that. Because it is just possible that at the end of the day, she may be found innocent, and because she will be found innocent, she may have to return to her position. Yes. But all these things will be hanging on her neck and so on. So I'm worried about that. Now, the other thing I'm worried about is that, and there's no law, which prescribes how people should select their lawyers when they have cases to answer. There's no law which prescribes that. And indeed, I think that all lawyers, if they are faithful to their calling, will do a good job regardless of their political coloring and so on. But then there's this thing called public perception. And public perception is not grounded in law. Public perception has to do with our inherent biases and so on. You understand? So if you have a situation where a Chief Justice is in this situation, and it does appear that her entire legal team is made up of persons from a particular party, that is damaging. In fact, that may tend to reinforce the public perception that there's a political case between the NDC and the NPP, and the aesthetics are not good. It doesn't help the sitting Chief Justice. And I think that she would have known much better. I was expecting her to have known much better. Now, it gets worse when a whole political party jumps into the vanguard of her defense. It's strange. Now, there's another aspect which for me is troubling. I've been talking about it, it's exceedingly troubling. Some people have already started jumping the gun. And what are they doing? They're saying, if this succeed, then maybe there'll be a petition against the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, and that will also succeed. Why not? Why not? If it is established that her conduct amounts to stated misbehavior, misconduct, and incompetence, and so on, and she goes away, she's removed through a constitutional process, what should stop the Council of State, the President, and relevant institutions from removing the Electoral Commission if she's also found to be incompetent and to have engaged in stated misbehavior? What should stop that? Kwame, what should stop that? My brother, what should stop that?
Well,
why should we even think of that?
That's my question. What should we think of that?
If the chairperson of the Electoral Commission or any member of the Electoral Commission has behaved in such a manner as to qualify for impeachment, so be it. If the president has behaved in any manner to qualify for impeachment, so be it. So it doesn't matter the number of people who will be affected. There are so many people who can be impeached, on the basis of stated misconduct. Yeah. None of them should become insulated from the process simply because the Chief Justice has fallen. So that argument doesn't make any sense at all. And I think we should drop it. So far, it seems to me that the president has carried out his constitutional duty. What he has done is an injunction by the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. Indeed, if the president did not act in the manner in which he has acted, we ought to take him on for dereliction of duty. You understand? So the president is only doing what we elected him to do. Look, I am opposed to the death sentence. Because, for example, we know that many people were on death row and eventually, some people were actually executed and eventually we found them innocent. So once you execute people, you cannot bring them back to life. And that is why we ought to be very, very cautious about carrying out the death sentence and so on. But you see, one of the duties of a president is to sign warrants for killing people. In Ghana, you cannot have a president who is squeamish, who doesn't want to kill. Because one of his duties is that when the state decides that somebody must be killed, he has to approve it. So everybody you elect as a president must have the instinct, the knack to kill. It's his duty. You understand? It's a very unpleasant duty. But if you want to be president of Ghana, you should be somebody who can take a pen and sign for somebody to be killed, to be shot, to be hanged, and so on. It's not a very pleasant duty, is it? So presidents have duties imposed on them which are not precedent, which are not pretty, which are not elevating, and so on. But they have to act as presidents. And that is the position in which President John Dramani Mahama finds himself. It is possible that President John Dramani Mahama really admires this Chief Justice. It is possible.
It's possible, yes.
It is possible that John Dramani Mahama, in his quiet, sober moments and so on, thinks that this is a very beautiful, honest, hard-working woman.
Yeah.
But the Constitution says that he must act in this way. He cannot refuse to act in this way. The Constitution insists that he must bring these matters to the Council of State. And then when the Council of State establishes a prima facie case, he has to set up a 5-member committee to go into the matter. When the 5-member committee decides, oh my goodness, that the Chief Justice fell foul of the law, that she was engaged in misconduct, and she was incompetent, President Mahama has no choice but to sack her. This is the Constitution. This is the duties we elected him to perform. And I think he should be allowed to perform his duties. Finish.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Pratt. Let me read a few messages.
You see why I say that this one
Constitutional lecturer. Constitutional law lecturer.
Guest lecturer.
Absolutely. Good morning to you, Kwame. The removal of CJ is lawful, just as it was with Charlotte Osei. It shows that no one is above the law. The unanimous FC has done so much harm to the state under NPP. They outlawed our birth certificates to help NPP try to or attempt to rig elections. They aided Akufo-Addo to vandalize embassies, bungalows, ministry schools, and passport offices in favor of a cathedral. They also helped EC to disenfranchise people, the people of SAL, in 2020. In Aflao, they closed down the courts and birth and death registry during the EC registration to stop people from.
To be honest with you,
Okay, the last part is not quite clear.
To be honest with you, I've not seen the petitions.
Yeah.
But if any of the petitions contain the SAR, I don't see how EC can escape incompetence.
Yeah.
I don't see how they can escape incompetence. I've not seen the petitions.
Okay. Good morning, KOD. In Ghana, we have all the resources except leadership resources.
Yeah.
This one also says, good morning to you once again. Okay, I think I've read this message already. Good morning to you, KOD. What is happening in TTH has started a long time ago. Please let Honorable Inusa listen to the report in the video and explain it to you. It is in our language. Okay, from Naros, from Savalugu. Narus. Okay, Savalugu. KOD, why is MPP in this pell-mell dash about the suspension of the CJ? There must be rats in the house. Let me see more action. She's a goner. Morris Weko Pomtonwa from Way Aloga. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Forgive me. This one is simply a video. I don't know whether it has to do with the TTH matter. Good morning, KOD. In fact, I was totally disappointed in you when you started talking like Akufo-Addo to the Honorable Minister of Health, who was rather fighting for our good health. Okay, all right. Thank you. What's the KOD from George in Ablekuma. Thank you, George, for your message this morning. This one says from Kuchonkumas, please, I know Mahama. I've known Mahama more than 40 years. I know him to be a very honest and dedicated person. This one also says those agitating against the removal of the CJ should forget it. It is an agenda to remove the CJ and put their own, so that those MPP appointees who will be sent to court can be thrown into jail. Joe from Bolga sent in this one. This one also says, are you using... Oh, my friend. Good morning to you, KOD and your panelists. Please, do you know why the MPP is defending the CJ? It is because they know that most of them may be sent to the Supreme Court for the oral, and the CJ will protect them from being thrown into jail. Charles from Japan sent in this one. Hey, people get theory, so. Good morning to you, sir, KOD. I'm Max from Adan. Please, inform the health minister to visit Adan East District Hospital. The services provided over there are nothing to write home about. People in Adan have to leave the district hospital and go to Sogapope to seek better health care because they don't feel safe going there. Please, Adan is bleeding. I recall back in the day when I was living in Tema, people had same reservations about the Tema General Hospital. Hi, KOD. It's always heartwarming listening to lawyer Enos of saying his depth of knowledge in our laws or constitution is mind-blowing. If he's not lecturing already, I plead to consider doing so. Yusuf Mahama from Accra sent in this one. This might get time. You don't get time. Kwame Esquire, I'm always very impressed when Comrade Kwesi and Alaji are on your show. I want to appeal to all youth of beloved Ghana to advocate for Senior Pratt as the next EC chair. The next EC chair of our republic. Oh, but I mean, you know, it's not a bad call. It's not a bad call. Ghanaians are far advanced with double standard deviation of MPP. Was a CJ for Ghanaians or for a political party? She should pack. Okay, the last part is not quite clear. Please bring back Elvis Botta to the Thursday Good Morning Africa program. I love the gentleman's submissions. All right, we'll bring him back. He's lecturing, so now you don't get time. Good morning, KOD. As for TTH, let us not talk about them. If I tell you my experience in that hospital, you'll be saddened. George in Debugri from Wa. And this one also says, good morning to you, KOD. So GMA was formed after December 2024, right? Have you heard of this group the past 8 years? Herbalists are still in the system. With them, we still hold funerals. Zico from Garu. I didn't get the last part clearly, but I think I have communicated what you wanted to. Good morning to you, KOD. This is Togbe Buton Nyaji II from Ho. Interesting discussions. The fact is that through the media, voices have been very loud for owning our natural resources and processing our raw materials. That's independence and development of Ghana. All right, thank you very much. Well, on that note, thank you, Mr. Pratt. Thank you, Honorable Desafuseni, and thank you for watching today's edition of Good Morning Africa. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.